It was Wednesday, November 8th, 2023, a seemingly regular day in Saltanat Nukenova's life. If anything, this day was promising. She was going to a concert with her husband and her best friend, and to make this day even more enjoyable, her husband took her to Max Mara to buy her a brand new outfit to wear to the concert. Little did she know that she wouldn't get to enjoy the concert, that her husband would take her to his restaurant, and in there he would spend the next 8 hours torturing and beating her to death. So where did it all go wrong? In order to gain a greater understanding of this whole case, let's go back to the very beginning. Saltanat Nukenova was born on May 15th, 1992, making her a Taurus. She was born in Pavlodar, Kazakhstan, and was the second child in her family, with an older brother named Aitbek. Growing up, Saltanat was really into astrology. She would often read natal charts of her friends and family members. She was really good at it, and luckily, her love for astrology would eventually turn into a career. She was probably one of the best-known astrologers in Kazakhstan. She also had a very successful Instagram blog. Saltanat's friends and family describe her as very empathetic, caring, and lively. They say she really enjoyed giving gifts and making people around her happy. And that is something that you can see when you watch photos and videos of Saltanat. She has this beautiful shine and warmth about her. Saltanat really loved kids, and one of her biggest dreams in life was to become a mother. A dream that unfortunately would never come true. Kuandyk Bishimbaev was born on April 11th, 1980. He was the firstborn to his parents, Walikhan and Almira. Bishimbaev's mother said that before having Kuandyk, they struggled to conceive for a very long time. So when they had Kuandyk, they were incredibly happy. Even his name, Kuandyk, translates into happiness from Kazakh. 5 years later, they had a second child, a daughter. Now, according to his parents, and take this with a grain of salt, Kuandyk had a very good childhood. He was a very smart and obedient son who really loved and cared about his parents. He was very academically gifted, graduating from high school at the age of 15 and then receiving 3 university degrees. After that, he had many prestigious positions, eventually becoming the youngest minister in the history of Kazakhstan. From the outside looking in, he looked like a great person, very smart, ambitious, and hardworking. However, people who personally knew him or worked for him didn't have a lot of nice things to say about Kuandyk. Even his wife, his co-workers, they describe him as a narcissist, as somebody who would only care about himself, someone who can be very aggressive, especially towards people that he deems as below him. So just by knowing what we know about them now, Bishimbaev and Saltanat don't really look like a very compatible couple, and the truth is, they weren't. Even Saltanat knew of this. She told this to Bishimbaev when he was trying to pursue her, but he didn't care. It was the summer of 2022 when Bishimbaev first found out about Saltanat Nukenova. According to him, one of his female friends recommended her to him because Saltanat would make very accurate predictions. So this made him quite curious, so he wanted to schedule an appointment, but he was rejected because Saltanat would not accept male clients due to the fact that they would oftentimes try to hit on her. Bishimbaev would later go to check Saltanat on Instagram, and according to him, he was expecting to see some old woman in her 50s or 60s with boho vibes and whatnot, but Saltanat was anything but. He said that when he saw her, he was so shocked because she was very young, she was beautiful, and he was really into her. However, Saltanat Nukenova at that time had a fiancé, so this meant that Bishimbaev couldn't pursue her. But this didn't stop him from checking her Instagram every now and then like a fucking creep. And he said that in the beginning he was, really respectful of Saltanat because she didn't accept male clients, she had a fiancé, and he just thought to himself, oh, what a nice and decent woman. Later that summer, Bishimbaev found out from his female friend that Saltanat Nukenova broke up with her fiancé. and I guess this made him incredibly happy, and he immediately began plotting. So he asked his another female friend to get an appointment with Saltanat, and during the appointment tell her that she has a male friend who is really into her, who is interested in her, and his female friend did just that. Now, by the time she had an appointment with Saltanat, Bishimbaev was in Moscow with his son, and there he received a call from his friend saying that, hey, I am with Saltanat right now, do you want to talk to her? And that's when Bishimbaev and Saltanat talked for the first time. And honestly, this whole thing is giving me such a creep vibes. You know, the song that comes to mind is Obsessed by Mariah Carey. Like, why you're so obsessed with me? Clearly, he was obsessed with Saltanat from the very first time that he found her on Instagram. His actions afterwards were just very creepy in my opinion. This is in no way, shape, or form romantic. This is just disturbing. So anyway, back to that call. During that call, Saltanat agrees to accept him for an appointment once he returns to Kazakhstan. And I think she just said this to be polite, because once Bishimbaev came back to Kazakhstan, Saltanat would keep rescheduling their appointment. And clearly she did not want to meet this guy. She was not interested. But eventually he wore her down, and during their appointment he took her to a very fancy restaurant, and in there he said that they probably talked about astrology for like 30 minutes, and then he was like, look, I really don't give an F about astrology, I am like into you. So then they spent the entire night getting to know each other, but he said that he noticed that Saltanat was quite heartbroken still over her broken engagement, but I guess this also didn't really bother him, and he just continued to pursue her. So that summer, Bishimbaev would spend taking Saltanat on dates, to concerts, and even according to his own testimony, Saltanat would tell him that this was progressing way too quickly for her, and she was not ready for a new relationship. I mean, she just broke up with her fiancé. But again, does Bishimbaev really care about it? Nope. He just continues pursuing her, and eventually I guess he wore her down, and by the fall of 2022 they would go to travel together and just spend all the time together getting to know each other. So by October 2022, Bishimbaev proposed to Saltanat and she said yes. And mind you, they only began dating like in August. So this is just crazy. 2 months after dating, he is already proposing to her, and everybody saw this as a red flag. However, Saltanat told her friends and family that during those 2 months they spent a lot of time together and they really got to know each other. So by December 2022, they had their wedding, and their wedding was very beautiful. They were surrounded by close family and friends. However, there's a very important thing to note about their relationship. Saltanat and Bishimbaev weren't officially married. They had Muslim marriage certificate, but it's not recognized in Kazakhstan. So in the eyes of law, Saltanat Nukenova and Kuandyk Bishimbaev weren't officially husband and wife. Anyway, according to Bishimbaev, only 2 weeks after their wedding ceremony, the two already began having problems. He says, and please take this with a grain of salt, that 2 weeks after their wedding, Saltanat told him that she used to have an affair with a very prominent businessman in Kazakhstan. Now, the reason why she came clean about this affair was because Kuandyk personally knew this businessman. As a matter of fact, he even had a photo of him with this businessman in his office. And every time Saltanat would enter his office and see this picture, she would just feel very uncomfortable and guilty, so she decided to come clean. Bishimbaev said that he was very shocked when he found out about this, because this businessman, he is 20 years older than Saltanat. He has 4 children, and Saltanat told him that she had an affair with him when she was in her 20s. When they got married, Saltanat was 30, by the way. So regardless whether this is true or not, this happened before Bishimbaev. So this marked the beginning of all of their fights, and Bishimbaev says that after Saltanat came clean about this, she just became incredibly moody, hysteric, and unstable. She was always paranoid that Bishimbaev was going to cheat on her. But again, please take all these allegations with a grain of salt, because Saltanat is not here to clarify or give us her side of the story, because Bishimbaev killed her. Anyway, he says that she always thought that he was going to cheat on her, and therefore she just began calling him nonstop whenever he was out doing business or meeting with his partners, and she would just demand to always know where he was, who he was with, when he was coming back home. And this got old pretty quickly. One time he says that she called him during one of his work meetings on a video call, and he didn't accept it because he was with his business partners. This really pissed Saltanat off, and when he came home, he found out that she left. And I guess this was the first time that she left him. During the trial, Saltanat's brother said that Saltanat tried leaving Bishimbaev 8 times to his knowledge, and Bishimbaev was like, oh nay, actually she tried leaving me 12 times. And mind you, they were married only for 11 months, so this does not look good. It looks like these two had very toxic, dysfunctional marriage. And of course, Bishimbaev just blamed everything on Saltanat, and he said, look, she was unstable, she was crazy, she kept leaving me, then she kept coming back. Anyway, back to their first fight. Now, Bishimbaev said that initially he was very angry because he personally knew the guy, and he felt like now everybody in his circle would just start talking behind his back because his wife had this affair in the past. However, he decided to forgive her, and he communicated this to Saltanat, and he told her, look, they can talk about me all they want, I don't care, I am in my 40s and I really love you, I want to build a family with you, so screw them all, he said. But their problems would continue for whatever reason. And this is quite difficult to understand because Bishimbaev just said that his wife was hysterical, she enjoyed drinking, she was jealous, she was possessive, she was moody. So she would just get in one of her weird moods and leave him and come back. However, I have a really hard time believing it. Like, who the F gets in a bad mood and leaves their husband? I'm pretty sure that whenever she was leaving him, she had bigger reasons than just mood swings. But he denies any allegations of torturing her during their marriage or mistreating her. He said that as soon as they began having problems, he always tried to solve them. First thing he did was to try to reassure Saltanat that he really loved her and he wasn't going to cheat on her. He says that he did everything that he could to make her happy. He gave her an allowance of $10,000. He was buying her designer clothes, expensive jewelry. He was taking her to Maldives for vacations. So he just did everything that he could, and his wife was still not happy. He then decided to go to couples therapy to work on their issues. He also began giving his wife Atarax because, again, he says that she had mood swings and he thought that this would help her to be more stable. However, Atarax is a prescription drug and he didn't have a prescription for it, but he still was able to purchase it and give it to his wife. And he says that Saltanat did not want to take this drug, but he convinced her by saying that, hey, I will take it with you so we both are going to be more calm and we're not gonna fight. And that's how he persuaded her to start taking Atarax. When Bishimbaev was asked how he was able to get Atarax without prescription, and most importantly, why the hell he was giving this to his wife, he said that he talked to a psychiatrist who said, hey, if your wife is having all these mood swings, you can try giving her Atarax. So he just ordered his assistant to buy it for him. Now, it's very weird because you cannot buy this without a prescription, so I'm not sure if he had to pull some strings in order to get it, but either way, it is so fucking scary that this guy was drugging his wife. And like I said, she didn't want to take these medications. She was like, just fucking leave me alone. But he was like trying to convince her that this was good for her, that they're gonna take it together, and this would prevent them from fighting. Now, Now, I don't know what kind of relationship they had, like maybe they were both very explosive, but either way, there is no excuse to drug your wife. During the trial, when judge was investigating Bishimbaev's phone, she read the conversations between Bishimbaev and his therapist. Now, Bishimbaev and Saltanat were in couples therapy. They did this online, so after every session, their therapist would send them a feedback. During the trial, judge read some of those feedbacks, and we were able to get somewhat of a deeper understanding of their marriage. Therapist mentioned that Bishimbaev really wanted Saltanat to cook for him 5 times a week, to wake up in the morning and send him to work. And Saltanat, she just wanted Bishimbaev to stop criticizing her. Apparently, Bishimbaev had a way of talking with her that was very demeaning. He enjoyed, I guess, belittling her. He believed that he was way smarter and better than Saltanat. So whatever she did, he would always criticize her and make her feel like shit. Another problem that they had, according to the therapist, is that they both had very unhealthy attachment issues. However, in Bishimbaev's case, I guess it was a lot more intense. Now, therapist describes Saltanat as an introvert. According to the therapist, she just wanted to be left alone sometimes and do her own thing. However, whenever Saltanat would focus on her own projects, Bishimbaev would take this as an act of rejection, and thus they would end up having a lot of fights. Therapist also brought up that in order for their marriage to work out, Bishimbaev really needs to forget Saltanat's past relationships. Apparently, this guy was living in Bishimbaev's head rent-free. I mean, he continuously mentioned him during the trial. We found out that he talked about it with his cousin. He brought it during the therapy. And I don't know why this one really stank for him, because before meeting Kuandyk Bishimbaev, Saltanat was engaged twice before. However, Bishimbaev didn't have any problems with those men. He had a problem with Raimbek Batalov specifically. And in my opinion, it's because maybe Saltanat's prior engagements, prior boyfriends, they weren't as successful or rich as Kuandyk Bishimbaev, so he probably didn't see them as a threat. However, Raimbek Batalov, he is a lot richer than Bishimbaev, and he is more respected. He never went to jail, and overall, he's somebody who has a strong family unit. He's a successful businessman. He is basically everything that Bishimbaev is not. And given that Bishimbaev is a narcissist, maybe that's why that affair, now we don't know if it ever happened in the first place. However, this alleged affair was really eating at him. Now, we all know that during the trial, when they investigated Kuandyk Bishimbaev's phone, they did find a lot of upsetting videos in his photo gallery. And in those videos, he was forcing Saltanat Nukenova to admit to having an affair with Raimbek Batalov. He made her swear on her womb, on her future children, on her parents. So this guy was, I guess, also really obsessed with Raimbek Batalov. Back to their married life. According to Bishimbaev, him and his wife would often fight, and she would end up leaving him. However, she would come back every single time. Now, he said that whenever they lived together, they couldn't get along for more than a month, and then they would end up having a huge fight and they would split up. However, whenever they were apart, they just couldn't stand being apart, so they would get back together, and they were stuck in this cycle when they are on and off like boyfriend and girlfriend. Now, a lot of people did encourage them to get a divorce. Like literally, they weren't even legally married, so they were free to leave at any point. Bishimbaev said that at some point his mom was telling him like, hey, this isn't working, you guys are better off apart. Saltanat's family and friends were really trying to encourage her to leave this abusive marriage, but unfortunately it also didn't work. What's really heartbreaking is that once Saltanat was actually really close to leaving Kuandyk for good. And it happened, I believe it was early fall of 2023. Saltanat finally decided to leave Bishimbaev. She packed most of her stuff and she moved back with her parents. Unfortunately though, two of them would get back together soon after, and they even decided to renew their Islamic marriage ceremony. So yeah, this was a big mistake, and this would be unfortunately the last time the two of them would get back together. During the trial, it became quite evident that a lot of people knew what was going on in Saltanat's marriage. On March 20th, 2023, Saltanat sent a picture of her bruised face to her brother, and this was only 3 months after their wedding. We also found out that Saltanat told a lot of her female friends that she wanted to leave Bishimbaev. She told one of her female friends that Bishimbaev was a monster and that she needed to find a lawyer in order to leave him. She told her friend that Bishimbaev was really worried that Saltanat's family would use the picture of her bruised face in order to blackmail him and get more money out of him, so he forced her to make a video where she was naked so that he could also have some blackmail material on her. By the way, this was the same friend who went with them to a concert on November 8th, and I think Saltanat sent these messages during the summer of 2023. Bishimbaev's cousin, who was the director of the restaurant, also was aware of what was going on in Saltanat's marriage. He said that on multiple occasions he saw Saltanat with bruises on her body, on her face, and once she even told him that she did want to leave Bishimbaev, but unfortunately she never did. We also found out through him that Bishimbaev had a terrible temper. I mean, during his fights with Saltanat, he had a habit of destroying any furniture, be it in his house or in a restaurant. Bishimbaev just didn't care. And once the fight was over, he would just call his cousin and tell him to hire some people to fix up the furniture. I mean, it sounds like this guy has a terrible temper. He is just a very scary monster. Aside from the people who knew of the violence but haven't witnessed it, some of the people who worked for Bishimbaev, specifically people who worked in his restaurant, have unfortunately witnessed this. One of the people who testified during the trial was a bartender of Bao Bishimbaev's restaurant. He said that on one occasion he did hear Bishimbaev and Saltanat fight in one of the VIP rooms. He then witnessed them both leave, and they both had scars and bruises on their faces. Bishimbaev did confirm this. He said that he and his wife got in a big fight. His wife then proceeded to throw her phone in Bishimbaev's face, which made him really angry, so he ended up slapping her several times. And after that, they left the restaurant, and that's why they both had bruised faces. Also, night shift workers of the restaurant witnessed them fighting twice. And these are the same night shift workers who were there on November 8th. One of the night shift workers who testified during the trial said that November 8th wasn't the first time they had a huge fight in a restaurant. As a matter of fact, 10 days before, they had even bigger fight in the VIP room, and these night shift workers, they could hear everything. And by the time they were done, the VIP room was completely destroyed, and unfortunately, they did not get involved. The night shift worker confirmed that he was instructed by the manager of the restaurant to never, under no circumstances, speak to Bishimbaev. They weren't even allowed to look him in the eyes. Whenever Bishimbaev would come around, they had to stop everything that they were doing, disappear, wait for him to leave, and then resume their work. And this kind of adds up with what other people were saying about Bishimbaev. One of the waitresses who worked in Bao said that Bishimbaev was extremely demeaning and disrespectful. One time he told this waitress that she was a slave, that she is a nobody, and she should stay in her own lane, and she is never to talk to him ever again. And that was the day when she just left that restaurant. And I mean, who talks to people like that? This guy is a complete fucking trash. So when the judge asked this night shift worker why he didn't call the police or an ambulance when he could hear them fighting, he said that unfortunately this wasn't the first time he witnessed them fight, And the first time this happened, Saltanat didn't die, so therefore he couldn't imagine that this would all end up in such a tragedy. And number two, we have to take into account the power imbalance. And say he called the police and then Saltanat wouldn't press charges or whatever. Can you imagine what Bishimbaev would do to this worker? I mean, he would probably go out of his way to make sure that this night shift worker would never get any other job. So obviously you have to take into account what kind of a piece of shit Bishimbaev was to his workers. Now, it is extremely tragic and heartbreaking that so many people knew of what was going on. Some people even witnessed this firsthand, but nobody did anything. Of course, we know that Saltanat's brother tried really hard to convince her to leave Bishimbaev, but Saltanat was very stubborn about staying with. She genuinely thought that she could change him, and I suppose that she really loved Bishimbaev and wanted to make things work. And we also know that Saltanat's family was encouraging her to leave Bishimbaev. Her friends did the same. However, none of this worked, and I think I can kinda understand this, because what were they supposed to do? Were they supposed to kidnap Saltanat and lock her up and make sure she never gets in contact with Bishimbaev ever again? I mean, you have to keep in mind that she was a 31-year-old woman. She wasn't an adult. So of course, nobody could force her to do anything. They could suggest it, they could talk to her, but other than that, what can you do? And in the case of some of the employees of the restaurant, it is also very tragic that most of them thought like, hey, he is beating her and she is staying with him, so I guess this is cool. They also knew that she tried to leave him, then she came back, and they saw this as a reason to not get involved. So this is really upsetting. After this case blew up and received so much publicity, there were a lot of people wondering why Saltanat stayed with Bishimbaev. Why didn't she leave him? And most importantly, why was she going back to him every single time? I think it's very important not to underestimate how difficult it can be for victims to leave their abusers. Victims of abusive relationships often face significant challenges when trying to leave their abusers. Research indicates that, on average, a victim may attempt to leave their abuser 7 times before they successfully manage to break free from the relationship. Many victims still love their abusers and hope that they will change. Abusers often promise to reform or seek help, creating a cycle of hope and disappointment. And I think this really applies to Saltanat's case. We do know that she was hoping that Bishimbaev would change, and we also know that she really loved him. She wanted to make this marriage work, and it was evident from the conversations between Bishimbaev and Saltanat, also from the notes that Saltanat was writing on her phone. She described that they had a lot of happy moments. Now, obviously, in an abusive relationship, it's not like your abuser is mistreating you 24/7 and making you feel like shit. Of course, they have their happy moments. Saltanat was also hoping that if she got pregnant and they had kids, maybe then Bishimbaev would get hold of himself and stop being so abusive towards her. Despite being a complete piece of shit, Bishimbaev's probably only redeeming quality was that he was a decent father to his children, and that's why Saltanat probably thought that if they had kids together, Bishimbaev would be happier and this could save their marriage. Back to the events that took place on November 8th. According to Bishimbaev, on November 8th, Saltanat and him were planning to go to a concert with Saltanat's friend. They were planning to see a Russian artist named Dima Bilan. For those of you who don't know, he's a very famous artist in Russia. He even represented Russia on Eurovision like way back in the day. Regardless, so it's a regular day. They're planning to go to a concert later on. And here are 2 things to keep in mind. Number 1, prior to November 8th, Saltanat and Bishimbaev were separated. So Saltanat packed all of her stuff and moved back to her hometown with her parents. Number 2, while they were separated, Bishimbaev was seeing other women and Saltanat was aware of this. So on the morning of November 8th, Saltanat was trying different clothes on, trying to figure out what to wear to a concert. but most of her clothes was in her hometown. So Bishimbaev offered her to go to Max Mara and buy her new clothes. That afternoon, I suppose, they went shopping, they bought her some new clothes. So that afternoon, they went shopping, they bought new clothes for Saltanat. Then Bishimbaev said that he dropped her by the restaurant where Saltanat was supposed to meet with her girlfriend who was going to join them to the concert. Bishimbaev himself said that he went to the gym and he told Saltanat that he would join them after the gym. So far, everything seemed to be going okay. Now, Bishimbaev after the gym did ended up joining them. However, this is where things start going wrong. So in that concert venue, Bishimbaev met one of his female friends. Her name was Indira, and he said that Indira kissed him on a cheek in front of Saltanat, and we don't know if she was just a female friend. Was she his mistress? Did they have any, close relationships? According to him, they are just friends. Anyway, so he meets Indira. Saltanat sees this. He then asks Saltanat and her friend if they would like to drink some champagne. They say yes. He said that he called his restaurant and told them to bring a bottle of champagne to the concert venue. And he stood outside 40 minutes waiting for the champagne to arrive. Once the champagne arrived, he poured it in coffee cups and then brought it back to the venue. Now, according to Saltanat's friend, Saltanat was just fine when they entered the venue. It looked like everything was going normal. However, once Bishimbaev came, they began fighting. Now, obviously, because the concert venue is really loud, Saltanat's friend couldn't hear what they were fighting about. However, she did ask Bishimbaev to stop causing a scene in public, so he did. For a while, it was just fine, but then Bishimbaev whispered something in Saltanat's ear and Saltanat began crying. Now, I can't even imagine what he told her. However, this really affected her mood, so Saltanat just got up and left. Then Bishimbaev followed her. And obviously, in that moment, her friend couldn't even imagine what was coming. She thought that they had a disagreement and they would, just go outside, talk, figure things out, and then come back. However, they never came back. Bishimbaev said that once they left the concert venue, Saltanat began cussing him out. She was very emotional. She began screaming at him. Now, it's very weird because he never explains why she was angry, why was she cussing him. Nothing. Just the fact that she went crazy, started screaming, cussing, and he never gives any context, which I think it's really suspicious because nobody just starts fighting out of nowhere. So obviously he whispered something in her ear that was, hurtful. Maybe we don't know for sure. Anyway, so once they leave the concert venue, Bishimbaev said that they were in his car, and Saltanat told him that the only reason why he doesn't want to let her go, it's because he bought her so many things like gifts, jewelry, clothes, etc. So then he said that she started removing her jewelry and throwing it at him. She took the new clothes that Bishimbaev bought her from Max Mara, also tossed it outside, and they stayed in the car fighting for a while. Eventually they both calmed down. Bishimbaev told Saltanat to go outside and pick up all the stuff that she threw. She did just that. Then somehow they end up outside, they're walking, and Bishimbaev's restaurant is walking distance from the concert venue, maybe like a 5 to 10 minute walk. So they end up in his restaurant. Now, outside of the restaurant, you can see them talking, and it looks quite tense. I think Bishimbaev looks quite drunk in those videos. They stay outside for a very long time, talking and talking and talking, and they go in and out several times. Again, Bishimbaev never really clarified what was going on other than saying that his wife was being emotional, she was hysteric, she was unhinged. But if you watch those videotapes, she does not look hysteric, she does not look emotional. If anything, she looks like she's so tired of Bishimbaev. He's the one who looks very unhinged. In one of the videos, you can see like he's barely walking, like he's really drunk. So he gave us no context of what the hell was going on. Anyway, they end up in his restaurant. They go to a VIP room. And Bishimbaev said that Saltanat was really mad at him because he had cheated on her. Now, he said that he doesn't consider it cheating because they were separated and he thought that they were done for good. However, Saltanat didn't see it that way, so she was really hurt. And according to him, she spent next 6 hours just talking nonstop, drinking and talking, drinking and talking. Thought that she just needs to get it out of her chest, that if he will just sit there and listen to her, she'll get it out of her chest and they will go home and everything will be fine. But it wasn't. And honestly, I don't buy any of that. He said that she was cussing him out and she was comparing him to her previous boyfriends and lovers in a very demeaning way. So again, please take all of this with a grain of salt. Now, he says that they were both drunk. They drank 2 or 3 bottles of champagne in that VIP room. At some point, Saltanat, she was getting really loud according to him. And Bishimbaev, for once, was worried that somebody might hear them. So he told her, let's go to the bathroom and nobody will hear us there. Now, this VIP room has a bathroom there and that's where they went. He says once they were in the bathroom, Saltanat began biting him and she tore his shirt that he was wearing. He then says that Saltanat began again removing all of her jewelry. She took off the clothes that he bought her. And again, take this with a grain of salt. I kind of have a hard time believing this. But he says that she first removed her jacket. She removed her own shirt. Then she was about to remove her pants. However, he was like, what are you doing, Saltanat? So he grabbed her by her pants in order to prevent her from taking them off. But then he said that at some point he let go, and I guess Saltanat didn't expect this, so she ended up falling and hitting her head on a toilet. Then he says that the impact was quite strong. She got up and then she fell. She did this multiple times according to him, and when the judge asked him, well, you see your wife falling, why aren't you helping her? He said that he felt too tired and he felt like he didn't have enough strength to carry her. But eventually he did. Now, one thing that doesn't add up here is, okay, say she removed her shirt, say she removed her blazer, and say she removed her pants. But when they found Saltanat's body, she was completely naked. So I understand if she wanted to make a statement and like, okay, take your gifts and shove it up your ass, I don't need it. But why would she remove her underwear? Why would she remove her bra? And this, to this day, is the biggest question in everybody's minds. Now, we don't know if Bishimbaev essayed her or he tried to essay her, and this was not brought up during the trial. And I mean, if he essayed her, maybe, announce that and not just keep it a secret. So I assume they didn't have any sexual relations, but still, she was naked. And I'm trying to think about it from Saltanat's point of view, because, for example, we know that Bishimbaev, he was really fucking drunk, but Saltanat, she wasn't as drunk as him. So if she was planning to remove her jewelry, remove the new clothes that Bishimbaev bought her, how was she planning to leave him? Was she planning to go out naked without underwear or bra? And mind you, she forgot her own jacket in the concert venue. So she was wearing her husband's jacket. So was she planning to go out naked? Was she planning to just put on her husband's jacket and go home like that? Because this happened in November. And the weather during November is really cold. It can be like anywhere from 5 degrees to -5 degrees. So if you go out naked in that kind of weather, you're just gonna freeze to death. So it doesn't really add up. And I don't know why she was naked, but I suspect that perhaps she didn't voluntarily take off all of her clothes. Maybe she took off her shirt, took off her blazer, And then Bishimbaev was like, oh yeah, if you're gonna remove your jewelry, take off the clothes that I bought her, remove everything, and take off the bra, take off the underwear, come on, yeah, I bought everything. Maybe it was like that, because I really don't see her removing her own underwear, given that they're not even at home. Keep this in mind, they are in his restaurant, in a VIP room. And by the time they arrived at the restaurant, it was around 8 or 9, there were still customers there. There were still people. And why would she do that where, like, say she leaves the VIP room naked or with her husband's jacket on? A lot of people would see this. It's not like this specific thing happened after everybody left. No, there were still people in a restaurant. So yeah, this part does not add up. Then Bishimbaev said that during that night, he tried on multiple occasions to go home. He couldn't, in his own words, because he was way too drunk to drive. And why didn't he order a cab right away is a mystery. Anyway, they then would try to leave restaurant several times and come back. And at some point, Saltanat, because they got in a fight, Saltanat tore his shirt up, so he was shirtless. So mind you, Saltanat is naked, Bishimbaev is shirtless. They are trying to get home. Bishimbaev says he is too drunk to drive, yet he's not calling a taxi because he doesn't want to be seen in that light publicly. Fine, okay. Then he says that he got really angry and he was mad at Saltanat because he thought that she was the one who caused this entire scene by removing her clothes, by blaming her for their marriage not working out for 6 hours straight, by getting way too drunk. So then he asks Saltanat, hey, is this what you wanted? And according to him, take this with a grain of salt, she says yes. And this is when he said that he lost it. He grabbed Saltanat by the hair, and this is what we could see in the camera, the only footage that didn't get deleted because everything else was gone. He grabbed her by the hair, then he proceeded to slap her several times. And those slaps were really hard because you can see that Saltanat ended up hitting her head on a wall because one of those slaps. She then falls on the ground. Now, once his wife is on the floor, this asshole continues to kick her, and he kicks her in a private area. And mind you, remember, she is naked. She is completely naked, and he is wearing his boots or winter shoes, and he is hitting her. He is hitting her so hard. Now, if this wasn't enough, he then grabs her by the hair and drags her to the bathroom. And he said that he took her to the bathroom so that she could wash her face and like just collect herself. But you just like beat the shit out of your wife. Anyway, they stay in the bathroom for like maybe a minute. Then he grabs her by the hair again and takes her to the VIP room. And Saltanat, she wouldn't come out of that VIP room alive. Now, after the judge investigated Bishimbaev's phone, we found out that after he dragged her to the VIP room, there is a video of Saltanat sitting on a toilet. She is naked. Her face, it is so badly bruised, she can't even open her eyes. Then Bishimbaev proceeds asking Saltanat if she had sex with Batalov. Like I said, Raimbek Batalov is a very prominent businessman in Kazakhstan, and Bishimbaev was suspecting that she had an affair with him. Now, in the beginning of the trial, he said that Saltanat herself told him that, hey, I used to sleep with him when I was in my 20s. But then he just keeps asking her, and he made like around 20 videos, and he was filming it every minute, and he was asking her if she slept with him. To which Saltanat says no. He then forces her to swear on her future kids, to swear on her parents, to swear on her family that she didn't sleep with him. And she says, yes, I fucking swear I did not sleep with this guy. And he says, nope, you're lying. You have to admit you slept with him. You slept with him. You slept with him. By the end, Saltanat says yes. And Bishimbaev asks why. Did you sleep with him for money? Saltanat says no. Then he proceeds to ask her what was it like sleeping with Baitalov? Did she enjoy it? Which is like so fucking creepy. Like, what is wrong with this guy? And I think he was at that moment either extremely drunk or I don't know, like he wasn't himself, because he didn't even know that he took those videos. Like during the trial, when the judge played those videos, he was like, nope, that wasn't me. Like somebody made this video up, but it was him. Only after the judge showed him the video and he looked at it, he was like, oh yeah, it looks like it's me. So make of it what you will. So at this point, it became evident that Bishimbaev was lying, because previously he said that after they went back to the VIP room, after he beat the shit out of her, he said that he told Saltanat to pack all of her stuff and that they were gonna go, he was gonna order a taxi and they were gonna go home. However, he said that Saltanat tried to pack some of the stuff that was in the VIP room, then she sat down on a couch, then she laid down there and fell asleep. He thought that she was really tired, was really intoxicated, so she felt like sleeping. So he was like, okay, fine, let's just sleep. But we found out that that was not true. He, after they went to the VIP room, was making videos of Saltanat forcing her to admit that she slept with Raimbek Batalov. So it looks like on the evening of November 8th, Saltanat and Bishimbaev got in a very big fight. It then turned physical. I think maybe from 1 in the morning of November 9th until around 8 in the morning of November 9th, Bishimbaev spent beating his wife, torturing her, and filming her, which is extremely disturbing. And none of the things that he said made any sense. He tried to justify his behavior by again slandering Saltanat and saying that, you know, she was saying a lot of hurtful things, which then got the best of him, and he responded with violence. But first of all, there is no way to excuse violence. Second of all, if Saltanat was such a terrible woman, she was comparing you to her exes, she was bad-mouthing you, she was throwing all the jewelry that you bought her in your face, why did you stay? Like, literally, he could have just left and Saltanat would be alive. He could have told Saltanat to leave and Saltanat would still be alive. But no, he resorted to violence. He beat her so badly that Saltanat died from the injuries that she sustained on that night. And again, none of the things that he said during trial, I mean when it came to describing their relationship, their marriage, the fights that they had, none of that made sense. He just said that his wife was an alcoholic, she was hysterical, she was jealous. He never mentioned why was she hysterical, why was she jealous, why were they having these fights? I mean, it takes two to tango. Did he do something to cause her jealousy? By now we do know that Bishimbaev is a serial cheater. He used to cheat on his second wife all the time. And mind you, his second wife had 3 of his kids. She was a stay-at-home mom, just how he wanted it, and he still cheated on her. We also know that he cheated on Saltanat multiple times, and she was obviously really upset by this. But however, he was still really obsessed with her previous relationships with Batalov, her affair or whatnot, that by the way, he couldn't even prove that this happened in the first place. So everything that he said during the trial sounds like a lie. He couldn't even explain why their relationship was so toxic, why wasn't it going well. All he did was just to blame his deceased wife, who is no longer here, who cannot defend herself, who can't share her side of the story. However, on that day, after Saltanat was on a couch, asleep, according to Bishimbaev, Bishimbaev just proceeded to move on with his day. He called his cousin first thing in the morning, told him to bring blankets. He then told his cousin to bring some gel to cover up Saltanat's bruises. Then he was like, you know what? I'm hungry. Then he ordered his cousin to bring some food to the restaurant. So he was just chilling. There he is in a restaurant eating his lunch. He told his cousin to delete all the footage from the restaurant, to tell all the staff to go home. and he is just living life as if he didn't just kill his wife. Anyway, he then has a meeting with a woman named Gulnara. Now, according to Bishimbaev, they have scheduled this meeting a while back, and he felt like just meeting with her. I mean, you just literally killed your wife, but okay. So Gulnara comes to the restaurant, right? And this woman, a lot of people allege that she might have been his mistress. Gulnara is a lot older than Bishimbaev. She's, I think, 52. I'm not sure. She has a small blog on Instagram about ethical veganism, etc. Anyway, Gulnara during the trial said that Bishimbaev and her, they're in the same golf club, they go to the same gym, but she kept trying to downplay their closeness. She said that they never talked before, she just knows him because she sees him in a golf club, but that's about it. Now, I watched a video of this Russian YouTuber, and he's like a body language kind of guy, and he said that a lot of what she was saying were lies, because during the trial she kept answering to every question. Number one, I don't remember. Number two, I don't know. So she didn't give any clear answer. She said, I never knew this guy. We only go to the same golf club. And when the judge asked him, well, if you don't even know him, why are you going to meet him in a restaurant? And she was like, well, you see, well, I thought it was like a work thing or whatever. And like, work thing, you don't even know this guy. But regardless, he meets with this woman and they spend 1.5 hours together in a VIP room number 5. And Saltanat is either dying or dead in VIP room number 1. And they just drink champagne. And it's quite interesting that this woman it is quite interesting that this woman, it's quite interesting that this woman didn't even find it suspicious that there were no staff in the restaurant and the elevator wasn't working. She had to climb the stairs, and she said that Bishimbaev told her that they were having some issues with maintenance, so he let all the staff go and she just bought it. And when they asked her, like, did you notice anything unusual about Bishimbaev on that day? She just said, no, I wasn't paying attention to him. And I'm like, okay, he was like literally sitting next to you and you weren't paying attention? Like, okay. Because since he spent all night beating his wife, apparently his hands, they were like quite red. They had some, I don't know, bruises on them. And he was drinking champagne in front of her. Now this woman said like, no, I didn't notice any of that. I didn't see it. I was just drinking tea and we were just talking. When the judge asks her what you guys were talking about, she says everything. We were talking about our families. We were talking about everything. But then she contradicts herself by saying that she's a private person. They didn't talk about anything private. And I think family is a private matter. Okay. So it was really hard to make sense of whatever the fuck this woman was saying. Honestly, she showed up to the court and a lot of people were like, is she high? Because she wasn't even there, mentally. Anyway, so here's an interesting thing. On November 9th, when they were investigating, here's an interesting thing about this case. There's a video that they found from Bishimbaev's phone where Saltanat is holding a shirt, a bloody shirt, and she tells Bishimbaev, they will use this shirt as an evidence. You're going to jail for 10 years. And she probably at that moment didn't know that her husband was going to kill her. She just probably thought that he will maybe beat her some more, but she'll stay alive, and then she will go to the police and use the shirt as an evidence. We don't know. And that is allegedly the shirt that Bishimbaev was wearing, because remember he said that they got in a fight and Saltanat tore his shirt, and in the video that shirt is red. It has so many blood stains on it. Bishimbaev though says like, no, you're confused. The shirt was actually pink. Those are not blood stains. That's a pink shirt. And The judge was like, okay, this does not make sense. Did you go to a concert in a pink shirt? He's like, no, I was wearing a white shirt. So where did this pink shirt come from? Doesn't make sense. Anyway, that shirt that had bloodstains on it was missing, and a lot of people suspect that Gulnara helped Bishimbaev to get rid of some of the evidence that was in the restaurant. Now, after she leaves him, she sends Bishimbaev an interesting message. She told him, by the way, you smell of roses. And at first I was like really confused. That is such a weird thing to say to somebody. But apparently this phrase has a deeper meaning to it. And since I'm a dumbass, I literally had to Google it. So smelling of roses means to have people believe that you are good and honest after a difficult situation that could have made you seem bad or dishonest. Whoa, once you Google the meaning of what it means to smell of roses, this makes Gulnara look incredibly guilty. And I am also not sure why they didn't lock her up, because she potentially helped him to get rid of some of the evidence. They were also suspecting that Bishimbaev was planning to make Gulnara wear Saltanat's clothes and leave the restaurant. That way it would look like Saltanat left the restaurant, and maybe he then was planning to bury her body somewhere or get rid of it, and that way nobody would ever know what happened to her. Does this theory make sense? Honestly, I don't know. On one hand, yes. On the other hand, why was Bishimbaev then calling his psychic? Because he did call his psychic on multiple occasions on November 9th, and he told her that him and his wife been drinking all night long, they've been fighting, and now his wife is asleep and she's not waking up. So if he was literally planning to hide Saltanat's dead body somewhere, why was he calling his psychic? I mean, was he really trying to make sure that Saltanat was really dead? Or he wanted to find out if she was going to get better? I mean, if he wanted to find out if Saltanat was dead, he could have just checked her pulse. So I think just a lot of the things that Bishimbaev didn't make a lot of sense. He is some sort of a nonsensical guy. Also, it is very weird that after brutally beating his wife, he had no concern for her well-being. Like, he didn't try to call an ambulance or take her home. I mean, try to think about it logically. If you are Bishimbaev, you just spent all night beating and torturing your wife, and now she is not waking up. I mean, isn't it like enough to make you feel worried or alarmed? And if indeed he claims that he really loved her, why didn't he call an ambulance right away? Bishimbaev said that his wife was asleep and that she was snoring. However, medical experts said that she wasn't snoring, she was agonizing. And of course, Bishimbaev kept disagreeing. He said that at some point Saltanat began smoking a lot, and that's when she began snoring at night. So he thought that she was just very tired and asleep. However, Saltanat even says she is asleep. She had so many injuries and bruises on her body. I mean, when they were reading her medical records, like, it took 2 full pages just to describe all of the injuries that she sustained on that night, and Bishimbaev saw it, and even that didn't make him call an ambulance or seek any professional help. He only called his psychic, and his psychic told him, like, yes, she's okay. Like, what? Like, this is so nonsensical. Also, keep in mind, this guy refused to cooperate after he got arrested on November 9th. He refused to give password to his phone. Also, he had a really hard time finding lawyers to represent him, because no competent and respectable lawyer would want to represent him in the first place. So he kept changing his lawyers for a while there. And during the trial, he never told us anything of substance. It all just sounds made up. And the most upsetting part is that the only people who really knew what happened on November 9th, who really really know the nature of their relationships and their marriage is Saltanat and Bishimbaev. And Saltanat, unfortunately, is no longer with us. She cannot tell us the truth. And Bishimbaev, I don't think he'll ever tell the truth. On the bright side, Bishimbaev was found guilty on both charges, and he received a maximum sentence of 27 years in prison. Now, you have to keep in mind that he has 3 underage kids, and because of that, his sentence was reduced to 24 years, and he can apply for parole after 16 years. When the judge was reading Bishimbaev's verdict, he had his eyes closed and he was mumbling something. Some people say that he was reciting Quran. I'm not sure. Now, on the bright side, Bishimbaev's second wife said that they are really happy that this whole trial is over for the sake of their children, because those 2 months haven't been easy for them at all. And she even says that she plans to change her kid's last name. So in another interview, his ex-wife said that she won't allow her kids to visit Bishimbaev in prison, and especially that he killed his wife and then he took zero accountability for his actions, showed her that Bishimbaev was a terrible influence and a role model for her kids. So yeah, I think that is Bishimbaev's karma, that his kids are gonna change their last names. Their mom is not gonna let them visit him in prison. It is so sad and heartbreaking that Saltanat's life was taken away from her at such a young age, and that her dream of becoming a mother and having a big beautiful family would not come true. But I think we can all find comfort in the fact that Saltanat got her justice, and since this case got so much publicity, we now even have Saltanat's law, a law that is meant to protect women and children, and her legacy will live forever. This case has already helped so many women who are victims of domestic violence to come forward, to share their stories, to seek help. And for that, we all have to thank Saltanat. That is it for today. I'll see you guys next time. Please be safe.